Okay, everybody, so this is the second video, and in this video we're going to start actually going through the form. So you should have downloaded this one here, which has all of the information that you need. No, it doesn't really have all the information you need. It has information about the project, so you've got that one. Gives you some clues as to what it is that they're looking for. And then the second form that you should have downloaded is this one, which is a spreadsheet, which is where we do the actual filling in. So let's have a look at the spreadsheet. So this is just the original one. I've got another one that I'm going to bring up in a second because I'm going to write an application as if I was actually going to apply for this EOI. So here's the spreadsheet. Down the bottom, so in Excel, this is called a workbook. So this whole document is called a workbook. And down the bottom, we have individual sheets. So if you click on the first one, it's completion guide for applicants. Then we've got general information, insurance, workplace health and safety, compliance, mandatory criteria, qualitative criteria. So we need to complete this entire form in order to actually submit. Now, I in the last video, one of the most important things I said was there are no extensions. So 2 p.m. on the 26th of May is the cutoff, and you need to have it in by then. The most important thing for this video, however, is you must complete every single section. Okay, so do not leave anything blank. It is a classic tendering rule. If you're submitting a tender, you do not leave anything blank. You make sure that you complete absolutely everything. This is why we need to give ourselves time to complete these things as much as possible, so that we can go through and go, whoops, there's a question I've forgotten. So what we're going to do is over the next couple of videos, we're going to go through and we're actually going to complete every single sheet one at a time. Now, I have submitted a question, as I mentioned last video. I've submitted a question and it's actually about the insurance. So I'm not going to do the insurance sheet just yet until I get a response from JCU. Okay, let's have a look. So on this first sheet, this is the completion guide for applicants. So this is basically your checklist to make sure that you have completed everything correctly. So actually what I'll do at this point, I'll just close this one down and I'll bring up the one that I've already started. So I'll close you down. Here we go. So I've just saved it as, in case you make a mistake, sometimes you want, just make sure you save it as. So if I bring this other one up, where are you? This one? Nope, other one. Hold on. If I bring this one up, so what I do is I go File, Save As, Response Schedule, and I go Version 2. Save. So there you go. I've got a second version saved. So my original one is there. Then I have a working version that I'm working on. This is my version 2 one that I'd be working on. And then that way, if I make a mistake and I can just go, oh, this is crazy, and then I'll go off and I can do something else. One of the other things that I often do as well when I'm completing tenders, particularly tenders that are in spreadsheet form, which seems really crazy, but that's how they do them, is I might actually write it in another document, in a Word document, and then I copy and paste it. This guy, however, does not seem to like copying pasting, because I was doing it before, I was like, it was going all funny, so I didn't actually get to copy and paste, but I do like to keep a saved version of these, of my questions and my responses, that I have them on for later. So, okay, just close this guy. Okay, so this is the one that I started working on. So the first thing I did, my name, and it's Lisa Wadigo, Ascariot Media Proprietary Limited. So that's my name, and then I think that actually carries over to other forms, other spots. So it has them at the top of the page. So I put it in once, and then they all seem to go there. So that's obviously a formula. So this first page is basically the checklist that you do, probably at the end, to make sure that you've done everything. So have I read the request for EOI, including all the EOI documents? I think I have. I've read them all. Have I noted the EOI closing date and time? 2 p.m. on the 26th of May. I've noted that. So I clicked yes. Have I noted the lodgement process? Yes. You've got to lodge it through Q tenders. Don't email them. Do not email anybody this form. You have to lodge it through QTenders. Check that all addenda have been added. We will talk about addenda, and then there's the rest. I haven't done any of those other things yet. So let's just leave that there. I've done a couple. Okay, let's get on to general information. Okay, right. Cells highlighted in yellow are for completion. If you are lodging through QTenders, attachments must be referenced with the relevant section. If more space is required, please increase the row size or attach a separate document and make note in the reference document field. We're going to do a few of those different things in this video. So I'm just going to bring up my something over here that I've got my notes. So I've got all my ABN and everything, all my numbers. So I'll just bring that up. Okay, so my entity name, my response is Iscariot Media Proprietary Limited. My ABN is, I've got it written over here, 3232 606 647 438. If you don't know what your ABN is, go to ABN lookup. I'll write that one down. I'll put it in the show notes. ABN lookup. If you can't remember what your ABN is, you should know what your ABN is, but if you don't, well, as long as you got access to it, ABN lookup. I never know. I can't actually remember it. I go straight to ABN lookup. Public entity, Australian public. Okay, what's my entity type? I am a privately held company. Privately held company. So you might be a sole trader. You might be a incorporated association. Probably not. You might be a corporate association if you're a social enterprise. You might be a trust. You might be a partnership. So you would say what you are there. Type of work undertaken by your business. So for this project, I'm going to say we do training services and training services. I think was one. Let me just double check what their language was. I think it's written in here somewhere. Training services and consultancy services. So that's what I do. Consulting services. That's it. It'd be helpful if I spell correctly. Head office and location. So obviously I'm actually down here. So I'd say Suite 4, 259, Stafford Road, Stafford, Queensland 4053. Far North Queensland or North Queensland branch, not applicable, which is why I'm not actually going to submit this form. I'm just pretending to for this purposes of this. If you have a Far North Queensland office, the number of FTEs is full-time employees. So how many full-time employees do you have at that location? Now, if you have someone who works part-time, so they work 3 days a week, so they would be a point. Oh, hold on. So a one full-time employee is someone who works 5 days a week. Then you've got a 0.5 is who works 2.5 days a week. And then you might say a 0.1 is someone who works 1 day a week, that kind of thing. So you have to do the fractions. I'm not great at maths, so I'm not going to keep going with that. But if you've got two people who work half-time, if you've got two people who work 2.5 days a week, that's actually one full-time employee. Even though it's actually two part-timers, it's one full-timer. So how many FTEs? How many full-time employees? Annual turnover, let's say 50,000. Sounds like a lot. I might put a dollar in there. 50, 1, 2, 3. Do I have credit card facilities available? Oops. Yes, I do. So I get to click that. Provide a copy of your respondent's organisation structure and background information. Okay. This is where I've decided, I'm not sure if this is how I would respond. So I'm just going to say that this is how I would respond to this question. So what I would actually do here is I would go over and I would start a document. And I'm going to bring it over here to this screen. And this is what I've done with it. So I've put my logo at the top. 104381, I think, is the number. JCU Indigenous and Social Benefit Pre-Qualified Supplier Panel, Addenda, 26th of May 2021, Iscariot Media. So I've created a document that I'm going to compile all my addenda in so that they're all together in one document, so that, and then I'm going to put page numbers on it. So actually I'll do this. Now I'm using Google Drive here. Iscariot uses Google Drive. We don't use Microsoft. So we have, Google Docs is just like Word. We use Sheets instead of Excel, slides instead of PowerPoint, that sort of thing. So I'm going to put a page number in the bottom here. I'm just going to write Iscariot Media. Iscariot Media, proprietary, can never remember which one first. Proprietary Limited. And I'm going to write page. And I'm just going to go same. Insert page number. Oh, where did they go? Page 1. Okay. No, I don't need it to be different from the first page. Page numbers start at 1. Sorry, it's just a little bit of trickiness. Start at 1. I'm going to make it 8 font. And I'm going to make it, I'll explain this in a bit. So I'm going to make it the same, my company's color, red, which is, I've got it written over here, A2OB35. So I'm going to make that my company's red. And I'm going to bold it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, so the question is, let me just take this back over here. The question is, provide a copy of the respondent's organizational structure and background information. So we are a very simple company by comparison to a lot of big ones. It's not that complicated. But I thought I'm going to do an organizational structure like a chart. So the first thing that I do is I'm going to have information, because it's asked for background information. So I've included I've just done this very quickly. I may actually put a little bit more information here. So instead of about the business, I'm going to write background information. In a tender, there's a couple of different ways you can go. Some people say you don't want to be too stingy on the information. So don't give yes and no answers. Does your company do X? Yes. Okay. Tell us a bit more. How do you do it? Why do you do it? What are the outcomes of it? So don't be too stingy with your information. So what I've done here is I've actually said Iscariot Media is a privately held company founded by Lisa Wadigo. Iscariot began as an Indigenous creative agency delivering creative services to a range of clients, including Queensland Government, Commonwealth Government and universities. Since 2018, Iscariot has increased its delivery of small business training programs with a particular focus on digital and technology training. So that's really our specialty. Iscariot continues to deliver creative services, is one of 18 businesses on Queensland Government's Creative Services Panel. In 2020, Iscariot delivered a digital, social media and business support program, Open for Business, Indigenous Business Support Hotline. I'm going to make that bold because that was a big project for Queensland Government as part of its COVID-19 response. And then I might actually go into a little bit more information. You see, I'm trying to tell the story of Iscariot. I'm trying to show that we have been around for a while. I want to show that we have a range of different skills and specialties. So, if you've just recently done some training, for those of you who are in Townsville and you were recently featured at the One Business Indigenous Business Expo in Townsville, supporting the growth of the Indigenous business sector, that kind of stuff, you might want to put some of those things in. Tell us some stories about your business. How many employees do you have? How many Indigenous subcontractors do you use? Those kinds of things. That's always that's stuff that gives the person who's reading the tender some idea about who you are and gives them something to be invested in. Now, the next thing is calling about organizational structure. So I wanted to show you a tool. I'm just going to double click on this. So what I've actually done, I'll show you what I've done. If I go insert drawing and I go new, which is what I did to create this, this is what I can start doing. So I started this before, but I think I'm going to add a little bit more information. So I've got Iscariot Media Proprietary Limited. I'm going to move this guy over here. So that's me, obviously. But I'm also, oops, didn't copy properly. Copy and paste. So I'm going to put this guy over here a bit. And I'm going to go Chief, oops, spelled it wrong, Chief Operating Officer Edward Key, as he's my right hand man. So I'm just going to put we're kind of equal, but not really. We're kind of equal. And then we might, oh, whoops, I'm going to put some lines in here. So I'm going to make this one go down here. Actually, it's a bit wonky. So we go here. It's my phone dinging. And then we are both in charge of all of the different elements of Iscariot. Whoops. Okay, I'm going to do a whole new line because that's just not working. Sorry, so you get to watch me work. Sorry, and yeah. Anyway, there we go. Oops. All right, we'll move this guy over a bit more so it's not so. Great, save and close. So I'll double click on here again. So that's kind of looking a little bit what the organization is a bit. I mean, there's probably a lot more to it that I could add. But what I'm going to do is I'm just, because I've got a bit of time, I'm not rushing. And this is something that you do when you've got time. I'm actually going to go in here and I'm going to make my lines, my company colors. I'm going to make them a bit bigger. So this is where you start getting fancy if you want to. You do not have to do that at all. But you might want to, and I already added my company colors in there. So you can start getting fancy if you feel like it. You don't have to. It's not, this is not the thing that's going to make your, this is not the, making that pretty is not the reason why you're going to get on the list or not. But what it does do is it means you now have a version of this document, of this diagram, that you can refine and make more relevant over time. And I guess this is one of the things that I've really discovered over the years since doing tenders, and I've only been doing them for a few years. I didn't start out doing them. My first one was probably in 2018, so I've only been doing them for 3 or 4 years. But what I've really found is that the information and the documents that I gathered in those first tenders, I am then able to keep using over and over again, and I keep making them better and making them more, because of course your business changes, so I keep adding to them. So it's almost like if you've not ever done anything like this before, and it will be a bit painful because it's, oh my gosh, there's so much information to put in. What it does is it provides a foundation for you to then grow your business. So if you don't have anything really written down in terms of background information, after this activity, you will have that, and this document here, you will have this document that you can then build on every time that you want to do a tender. And, it just makes life so much easier if you have, the first one is always the hardest. So, okay, so I've got my background information and I've got my organizational structure. So we're starting to get through those questions. So I'll come back to conflict of interest in a little bit. We're not there yet. Okay, so provide a copy of the, provided, so I'm going to say, please find, maybe probably don't need to say please find, organizational structure and background information is on page 2 of the addenda document. So you don't have to call it addenda, so addenda is the plural of addendum, and you don't have to call it that. You could just call it attachments. I usually call it attachments. I only call it addenda because they put it in this one. I would normally just call it attachments. Is on page 2. So I wonder if I could bold that. Page 2. Control B. Oh yeah, there we go. All right. Next question. Are you acting as an agent for another party? If yes, provide details. No. So if you were getting somebody to do your tender for you, you might say yes, and then say who, and you might say who you were, maybe. But I'm doing for myself. Name of the person to contact during the EOI. That's me. So Lisa Wadigo, Managing Director, Iscariot Media. I'm thinking about I wonder. I don't know what it's going to ask me later. don't think it asked me, but I might actually put a bio in of myself, but I'll see how I go. I'll see if I need to. Oh, actually, there you go. Look, Lisa, where do you go? Take that out. I don't need that. I put that here. Managing Director. Email address, Lisa at Iscariot Media. Be helpful if I typed it properly. .com.au.com. I'm going to write mobile, because when I don't write mobile and I just write the number, then it chops off the 0. 0421. Oh, the other thing I can do instead of writing mobile, 0421 space 697 733. Yeah, that's better. Contact representative name if different from above. Actually, I'll give this job to Helen, who has just started with us. No. I'll give it to Edward. Edward Arkey, position Chief Operating Officer. Edward Arkey at Iscariot Media.com. Are you working along with me at home? 0400 because I actually can't remember his phone number. So I would put his phone number in there. Okay, so there you go. So that's the first section, but we haven't finished. So that's the first section. So you can do that really easily. That's the kind of section that you can... So I actually have a document called my tender library, my go no go tool, where all of this information is actually contained in a document, and it just sits there and I keep updating it over time. All right, so this is a tricky one. Conflict of interest. So I don't have any relationship with JCU. I don't have any relatives there. I don't on either Townsville or Cairns campus. I don't think I have any business relationships there. I'm not in any committees with anybody in that area or in that region, so I don't think I have an actual conflict of interest. So this is where there's a real conflict between an employee's public duties in the interests of JCU, potential conflicts and perceived conflicts. Like, it's kind of like you just want to make sure that none of those things exist. And if they do exist, what you do is you declare them. Don't try to hide them, just declare them. Now, we know that, families are big and we have relatives who work all over the place and live all across Queensland. And so it's very possible that you may have relatives working at JCU and you're like, oh, is this a conflict of interest? Just declare it. Whether it's actual, potential or perceived, make sure that you include it. So what I did, so I don't have any, but I'm pretending that I do. So I'm pretending I have a relative who works there. So I've written this. Lisa Wadigo, Managing Director of Iscariot Media, has no actual conflict of interest. However, there may be perceived conflict of interest as her sister, not really, Anne Wadigo, is employed by JCU in the Facilities Management area of Townsville campus. Iscariot Media delivers consultancy services for small businesses. So I'm just going to write that statement, but it's not true because I don't actually have a person there. But imagine if I don't have a sister called Anne, but imagine if I did, I would write a statement about what that is, just to make sure that, it was declared and everything was okay. So I'm just going to write, oops, sorry, I'm just flicking up and down here. Sorry. So I'm going to say conflict, my phone is going off. Interest statement is on page 2 of the, what did I call it? Addenda documents. Sorry, I'm just making sure I've got some consistency around my language. Oh, it keeps moving. Isn't that annoying? Of the addenda document. Oh. Sorry, it's moving. It's being tricky. This happens. This is what happens when you try to rush. Conflict of interest statement on page 2 of addenda document. So I'll just make that Control B, page 2. Then I'll go. Oh, don't move, please. Okay. If yes, please supply any actual or potential conflict and how it will be managed, and label it. Oh, okay. So I probably should have put that there. So I'm just going to write Lisa Wadigo. There may be perceived There's lots of different ways you can do these things. Perceived conflict of interest with her sister Anne, who works in facilities management on JCU on the Townsville campus. This will be managed by ensuring that no communication between Iscariot and Anne occurs regarding potential work. What else could we say? How else could we make Iscariot? Have I spelled that right? Yep. All interests will be declared when invited to quote. Yeah. We don't have a conflict. It's okay. But if we did, we would have to make a statement about how we're going to deal with it. So that's just an example. You get advice. If you're not sure about what your situation is, then just ask for advice from different people about how you might respond to that. I recently had a tender where we were invited by two competing companies on a project. And so I asked my brother-in-law for advice. My brother-in-law does a lot of tenders and manages tender processes for other companies and other organisations. And I had to ask him for advice. I was like, I just don't know what to do here. And in the end, his suggestion was, because we talked about it, we talked about the different aspects of the project and where there could be, conflicts and intellectual property. And so what I did was at the start of each meeting, I ended up kind of like interrupting and saying, excuse me, but I need to declare that we've been approached by one of your competitors to submit for this opportunity. And we reassure you that we won't communicate what you say to them and vice versa. And there will be very different quotes and that kind of stuff. So it was just really important that I declared that at the start. And then I also said, if you would like me to sign a non-disclosure agreement, I'm happy to do that. So by making those statements really explicit and declarative up front, then I think people are much more kind of, if they think you're hiding something, I think that's when you try to hide something, that's when you get into trouble. Okay, we're getting there. We're nearly finished page 1. Yay! Okay, anti-competitive warranty. This is a tricky one. I've not seen this one before, but I really think this is mostly about, for me, it's about where, say for instance, I'm a mowing person. I do landscaping. And me and my competitor, so I'm landscaper A, landscaper B, we both agree we're going to charge the same amount. Because really, so JCU will be going, they want to get the bet, so they'll go to landscaper A, they'll go to landscaper B, and they're like, okay, so, who's cheapest, who's the best product, or who's the best service, or who's the cheapest? And we're like, I don't know, let's agree. Let's not undercut each other, hey, that kind of thing. That's called anti-competitive, because competition is something that the system kind of relies on, because people want to get the cheapest price. So if we agree that we're not going to go below it, then that could be seen as anti-competitive. So I'm just clicking a straight no. Say, no, I've not colluded with anybody. I don't have any agreements with any of my competitors. I have nothing. I'm just like, yeah, no. Okay, that's the first page. We're going to keep going through in the next couple of videos. I'm going to stop now. I want you to start filling in your form, filling in this one, and I want you to have a read of the other sheets, but at the same time, I want you to start thinking about, if you don't already have it, I want you to have a think about what your attachments are going to look like. And you really do need to have them in one spot. If you're not going to have a, I need to double check if it has to be a single document. I suspect it does. If it doesn't, they need to be clearly labeled. Attachment 1 - insurance. Attachment 2 dash organizational structure, etc., etc. Whatever they are, you need to make sure you label everything really clearly. I'm going to try and put all of my documents in a single document, but if you don't have the ability to do that, then make sure that they're nicely and clearly labeled. I would be creating a folder on my desktop or on my drive and just starting to make sure you've got all of those documents in there, so you're ready to go when you need to. Okay, that's 30-minute video just on sheet number 1. All right, I'll talk to you soon and we'll get started on the rest.